Thank you all so much for clicking on this video. My name is Kela Trishaan and I make videos on lifestyle, womanhood, and mental health. So if those are some things that interest you, please click on that subscribe button below and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss any of my future uploads. Okay, so today's video is going to be about grocery shopping. Yes, grocery shopping. If you're anything like me, you spend a lot of time and money in the grocery store to sometimes not even use those groceries. And you could have all these plans to meal prep and, just make sure everything goes to use, but sometimes you just get tired. So for me, I came up with some tips because I'm tired of going through that cycle and I'm tired of throwing away good food. So I came up with some tips that help keep me on track and also me some leeway for those times where I just simply can't fix food from home. I hope these tips help you too, and if you're interested, please stay tuned. Okay, so the first tip that I have is to figure out your staple items. So what I mean by that is figure out the items that no matter what, no matter if you end up eating out later on the day, or if you don't feel like cooking, things you can easily reach for and things that you will always eat. So for me, I happen to like apples and bananas. So I always make sure that I have those in my house, quick snacks, and my baby likes them too. I also cannot live without coffee, so I know that when I buy coffee, it'll be gone by the end of the week because I'm drinking it every day. And I also like eggs. I use them in recipes, I eat them for breakfast. I just love me some eggs. So figure out what your staple items are. So if nothing else, you always have these items on hand, and you also know that they will not go to waste because they're something that you use on a regular basis. All right, the second tip that I have is to make a grocery list. So you can do this on your phone, that's completely fine. But for me, well, partially because of the pandemic, I don't want to be touching my phone in the grocery store, but I like to do old school, like how my mom used to do, and make a paper list. So I literally just get me a piece of paper, I'll fold it in half, I make my categories for meat, for produce, dairy, and then I have miscellaneous. And I go through my refrigerator and my cabinets to keep myself on track so I'm not overbuying. That's one thing you want to be careful of. You don't want to overbuy, especially perishable items that have an expiration date. Go through and make a list. Like if I, have a bunch of chicken left over from last week, obviously I don't need any chicken this week. If I want to have a steak and I don't have steak, I can buy steak. Things like that. So go through your refrigerator and go through your cabinets and make your list that way so you're not overbuying. And then also you can see if you're out of something and that you need to buy it. For me, that happens a lot with seasoning. I'm always out of pepper. I'm always out of garlic powder and garlic salt. So those are things like when I'm making my list, I make sure that I'm looking in the seasoning cabinet so I don't miss what I need to be getting. Okay, number 3, you want to have an idea of what you plan to make with the groceries that you're buying. So a lot of what I used to do when I would go to the grocery store, I would just buy stuff. Like, I don't know, I'll buy chicken, I'll buy greens, I'll buy rice, I'll buy whatever, but I don't really have a plan as to how I'm gonna make these meals. So when it came time to cook, like maybe I want, baked chicken and mashed potatoes, but I forgot to buy potatoes or whatever, or I just have a bunch of weird things that I wouldn't necessarily eat together. You can alleviate a lot of this by like figuring out the types of meals that you wanna make. So if you want to make stuffed bell peppers, then buy bell peppers and make sure that you have all the things that you want to go in it. Just be intentional about the groceries that you're buying to make sure that you use them so they don't go to waste. Okay, so the fourth tip that I have is to be intentional about how often you plan to cook and buy enough. So what I mean by that is I know that when I plan to meal prep, I'm at least cooking like 3 days a week. So usually about every other day. I try to make enough to where I have dinner and where I have lunch the next day. So I try to make enough for at least 2 meals. Not everybody eats leftovers though, so you have to think about that too. I know for me, I'm not eating leftovers usually past the second day. So as long as I have dinner and lunch, I'm good, but that may be different for you. So make sure that if you're planning to stretch these meals, make sure that you're buying enough so then you don't end up in a situation where you have to eat out because you just simply didn't buy enough. So just be thoughtful in your process as you're planning to go to the grocery store. If you know that you're cooking for you and someone else, or you and several people, make sure that you have enough servings for that meal and then any other additional meals you want to stretch from this cooking cycle. The fifth tip that I have is to don't be afraid to shop around for the best quality and deals. So for example, there's 3 stores that I typically shop at on a regular. So I like Whole Foods for their produce, and I just really haven't found anything to top that at this point. I like Trader Joe's. I like their frozen items and specialty items mostly. They tend to have really good frozen meals, like for times where I just don't feel like cooking, but I don't want to order out. So I usually will stock up on those items when I go to Trader Joe's. And then Ralph's is kind of my go-to for national brands that I haven't found a good duplicate for. So I'm not saying to go to 3 different stores every week. It's just not realistic, and I don't even do that. But I do have in mind, like if I know that when I go to Whole Foods, I usually will use my Prime membership. So I'll order through Amazon, so I get the best prices. So I know that when I'm ordering from them, I'm making sure to get the bulk of my produce, the stuff that I plan to make during the week. So I have that on hand. And then if I'm going to Trader Joe's, since they don't have delivery, when I go in there, I make sure that I stock up on my frozen foods that I like, or my specialty items or seasonings that I like to get from them, since I know I'm not going to be there for another couple of weeks. And then Ralph's, that's a place that I go to pretty frequently, so I'm able to get mostly what I need. If I'm not able to get to the other stores, like I'm okay buying produce and specialty items there, but I do have my preferences, and I tend to look for the best deals, especially if I do have a weekend where I'm free to go to all of those stores. So just have the places in mind that you like to go to, and be sure that you're shopping around so you're not overspending in one area where you don't have to. All right, so the 6th tip that I have is to aim to have an empty fridge by the time you go shopping again. The one thing I love is when it's time for me to go to the grocery store, I open up my refrigerator and it is bare. The reason why I love that is because that means that I effectively shopped for that week and I'm not wasting any food. Not to even get deeper off topic, but there are a lot of people that just don't have access to healthy food, and they don't have access to enough food, period. So I feel especially bad because I used to be in that situation where I didn't always have enough to eat. So I do feel bad when I overbuy and I end up having to throw things away because they went bad. My goal is to always just not buy more than what me and my family needs, to make sure that 1, I'm not wasting money, and 2, I'm not taking food away from somebody else that may need it. All right, so the 7th tip that I have, and this is really important, is to make sure that you are checking the dates on the food that you buy, and be mindful of the use by dates and the best by dates. So don't quote me on this, but my understanding is that if something says use by, a lot of times that means that it will be expired after, like you probably shouldn't use it after that date. And then best by usually means that you'll probably get the most freshness by that date, and after, it's not like it's necessarily bad, but it's not going to be at its peak freshness. So I know that there's a variation on that, and there's a lot of different information regarding dates. I'm not completely well versed, but I know for me, if I buy something and I have a month to use it, I'm usually trying to use it within like a week or 2. If I buy something from the grocery store and I only have a couple of days to use it, I don't know, it just depends on the item. It depends on the item for me, but just make sure that you are looking at those dates, so you're not buying things at the store and leaving it in your refrigerator, so by the time you get ready to use it, it's expired. I don't know if that all made sense, but you know what I mean. Just make sure that you are paying attention to your dates so you can make the most out of your shopping trip. I do try to look at, for example, I don't drink regular milk, but when I did, I would usually try to pull from the back, because a lot of times they'll put the freshest milk in the back so they can get rid of the milk that is about to expire. So that's a tip when you're going to the grocery store, look at that stuff. Also, there's been times where I've purchased cereal from certain stores, and usually cereal has a kind of long shelf life because of all the preservatives, but there's been times where I've bought cereal and like I just didn't look at the date for whatever reason, and I got home and it was expired, and yeah, that pissed me off because it's like I can't use it. So be sure to look at your dates. All right, so that is all I have for you guys today. Again, it's simple tips, but I think they can be really useful. I know I'm not the only one that is out here just buying groceries that I plan to use and then not using them. So hopefully these tips just kind of give you some some ideas on how you can make the most out of your grocery trip so you're not wasting your time. And if you know that you're going to be busy that week and maybe can't cook, maybe you can just minimize the items that you purchase. So yeah, if you have any tips that you would like to share on how you do your grocery trips, feel free to leave that in the comment box. If you like this video, please click the like button. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell. With that being said, you guys all have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.